There we are. There's a there's a light flashing in the back, so that's the official signal that we can start. Welcome, friends and neighbors, to the City of Tyler Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. These meetings are always open to the public, and we're happy to have folks come, even if you aren't on the agenda, if you don't have an item. The meetings are always open, so people can come in and have an opportunity to see what I like to call good government. I'm especially, as a TJC person, I'm especially happy to see some TJC real estate class folks here just to observe the process. That's not on the agenda, but we're happy for y'all to be here, and we hope you learn something about the process. Our first order of business is to call the roll. Sheila, is that you? I can't.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
They need to do something about that because I can't ever see who's over there, but I know you're there. Sheila, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Nichols. Commissioner Landis.
Here.
Commissioner Swain.
Here.
Commissioner Whitney. Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Phoenix.
Present.
And Chairman Hudson.
Present. We have a quorum present today. The Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council. All items approved today will be heard by the City Council at its regular meeting on Wednesday, October 27th at 2021, commencing at 9 a.m. If you received a notice for this meeting, you have also received a notice of the City Council meeting. Subdivision plats are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission solely, unless there's a request for a waiver of escrow fees or construction. Only the City Council makes financial decisions. If an item is denied, the applicant has 10 calendar days to file a written appeal with the Planning Department. The appeal will then be acted upon by the City Council. If you're here to speak for or against an item, when that item is called for review, please state your name and address for the record. Government should be limited to 5 minutes or less, although extensions of time may be granted by the chair upon request. At the conclusion of our meetings, we always have a work session to plan for the next month. The next work session will be held on October the 19th at 1:30 p.m. in the Tyler Development Center, which is across the street at 423 West Ferguson in the large conference room. That meeting, like all of our meetings, are open to the public, and the public is welcome to attend. The next item on our agenda is the minutes from the September 7th meeting. Have commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting? Any corrections or changes? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of September 7th, 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve those minutes from our last meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those meetings are approved. Our first item on the agenda is a tabled item from our last meeting, and I believe we'll need a motion in order to discuss this, to remove it from the table. Is there a motion to do that?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move Z21-033.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to take that item off the table so it's eligible for discussion. Is there any discussion, any comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Caleb, Z21-033, can you tell us where we are?
Yes, sir. Okay. As you mentioned, this is a tabled item from last month's meeting. The proposed zone change was from R1A to R1D. Initially, the request was to develop single-family homes on that property. The applicant came to us last month to develop 3 single-family homes on this lot after subdividing the current property The R1D zoning that he's requesting would allow for the lot to be subdivided into 3 based on dimensional standards of an R1D lot. The surrounding properties are all zoned for residential use. The properties to the north, east, and south are all zoned R1A, and then all the properties to the west are zoned R1B and are generally all developed with residential properties, single-family homes. Future land use guide identifies this property as single-family, medium, low density. The request to change to R1D would amend the future land use guide to be single-family and single-family attached. Yeah. And so, as I mentioned, the applicant had come to us saying that they were planning on developing 3 single-family homes. And the item was tabled after complaints from the neighboring residents that were against further density of this lot, that developing this lot into 3 single-family homes would be greatly increasing the density there, and residents were generally opposed to that. The item was tabled in order for the applicant to have a conversation with with the neighboring properties and come to an agreement. Speaking with the applicant, he's informed us that the conclusion with the neighbors was that that 2 single-family homes would be an acceptable compromise as opposed to the 3. R1D would allow for 2 single-family homes, but as I mentioned previously, a straight R1D zoning could, in theory, allow the lot to be subdivided into 3. An R1B lot zoning designation based on the size of the lot would allow for the lot to be subdivided into at most 2 lots based on the overall size of the lot. In general, a zone change here would implement the Tyler First Plan of adding more rooftops to north end properties. Either R1, R1D, or R1B helps accomplish that. There are concerns with if there were to be 3 lots on this property, there may be concerns with a shared driveway based on TxDOT requirements for driveway access on this property. There's concerns that if there were 3 lots, that that driveway could cut into requirements for minimal paving in the front yard of a property, and other general technical requirements that might prohibit 3 lots from being created. 2 lots would likely be more suited for this property, but as I mentioned, R1D could allow for 3. Of the 15 notices that were mailed, initially no notices were returned in favor and 5 were returned in opposition, for a total protest of 7.66. At the last meeting, there were other applicants besides those that sent in, or other neighbors besides those that sent in notices that were in protest. But the overall recorded protest calculation is 7.66. With that all being said, staff would recommend a zone change from R1A to R1B, which would allow for 2 lots, not the proposed R1D.
All right, thank you. Any questions? We're going to hear from the applicant and the public here in a minute, but any questions for Caleb?
Caleb, I just want to confirm it's within our purview to be able to amend a request if agreed upon, other than R1A to R1D. Like, we could make a recommendation to R1B. That is correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It sounds like the applicant he's here to discuss, but if the idea now is to do 2 lots out of this, that R1B, I mean, it sounds like that's the discussion that they've had with their neighbors, that R1B would allow for that arrangement. And yeah, the commission has the ability to recommend something different if the applicant, I mean, I think they can discuss whether they think that'll still work for them or not, but
Yes.
yes, you can do that.
Thanks, Kyle.
And Kyle, what are the zonings of the properties that are right around that lot? I see the one right across from it is 1B, but what about
Right.
the one, oh, it's 1A?
All of the lighter colored properties are zoned R1A. I think everything to the south of Frankston there is zoned R1A in general. And then it's a certain distance from Frankston that's also zoned R1A, which this lot falls within. And then everything beyond that is R1B. So most of this neighborhood is zoned as R1B, with the exception of the properties right along
So
Frankston.
pretty much everything that lines Frankston is R1A,
Correct.
single family. It's just one house.
Correct.
Okay.
R1B is also single-family residential. R1B has,
But you can do 2 houses on R1B.
it has a minimum, R1A has a maximum lot size of 7,500 square feet. I believe that's correct.
The minimum is 9,000 square feet.
9,000,
So
sorry.
you really, unless you have 18,000 square feet, you can't subdivide it, but the minimum for R1B is 6,000. So if you have at least 12,000, you can get 2 lots out of that.
Gotcha.
I believe the rough estimate is about 13,000 square feet for this property,
For
so.
this one? And the minimum is 6. Okay, gotcha.
All right, I think that's helpful to me and helpful to other commissioners as well. I have 5 cards on this item. I'm going to start with the applicant, Mr. Leandro. If you'd just state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Moses Leandro. Address is 12076 County Road 1169, Tyler, Texas 75703. We did have a discussion in the neighborhood since our last meeting. I actually just got an email this morning from traffic engineering regarding the end of radius distance from that corner, and so that's really what I was hoping to hear. And based on that, even 2 homes would be pretty far-fetched in there, and so due to that, I'd rather just make one. It'd be easier. Mr. Stogman lives next door, and so by just doing 1 home on that lot, I'd be able to go a little further away from his home too, give him a little bit more privacy. But as far as the zone change, and so because of that too, I can't have a driveway, as we discussed in the last meeting. I can't have a driveway on Frankston Highway. I'm forced to face the home on Franchel Street, and so R1A and R1B still limits the actual buildable area that I have, and so R1A and R1B both ask for 25 feet in the front, 25 feet in the back. R1D is the only one that reduces it 10 feet more further from the rear setback. And so what that means is I have an extra about 10 feet that I'm able to go in and extend the home a bit bigger, where if the lot allows, maybe even put a garage in there. And then also it allows me to obviously have a better design home. And so I considered doing R1B, but R1B would still not solve the rear setback, which really limits what I can put on that home. And so as far as, trying to do R1B for 2 lots, I'd rather have R1D 1 lot, since I'm more concerned about the rear setback. That's it. So
Okay.
that makes
So, Caleb, Kyle, the setback rules hurt him on this if we go B or D. Is that right?
Yeah, so-
Or A.
The setback, the front yard setback and the rear yard setback would still be taken from the same place if this is the lot layout. So the front 25 feet off Frankston Highway, then 25 feet off the west property line would still be the setbacks for R1A or R1B, if it's just 1 lot like this. If it's R1D, then you still have a 25-foot setback off Frankston Highway and 15 feet off the west property line. But it sounds like, I think the applicant would be treating it as essentially their backyard as a side yard, or?
Yeah, so I guess to that statement, so with the home facing Franchel Street, would my setbacks be Franchel Street and then the, I guess you can call it southbound property line, or would it still be the one facing Frankston Highway?
Depends on whether you subdivide or not. Depends on whether you subdivide or not.
What, I want to be subdividing it, just one lot with the
Yeah.
home facing Franchel Street. If it's facing Franchel Street, would the setback be from Franchel Street, 25 feet?
No, I mean,
It would still
it's-
be-
Yeah, it's established based off of that's not where the building faces, but the smallest lot line along the street, that is gonna be the front of the lot, so, yeah, so the front yard setback would be off of Frankston Highway, even if the house faces Franchel.
But in that case, we could just leave it, you know,
Yeah, and so you would
Yeah.
have the side corner setback, the corner yard setback on Franchel is
Yeah.
12 feet, so,
yeah.
yeah, and then on the south side, either it's R1A, it would be 7.5, or if it's R1B, it's 6.
Okay. Okay.
And so you can face the
Yeah.
home whichever
Okay.
way. It may appear if the house faces Franchel that your front door is close to the road,
Yeah, yeah,
But-
yeah,
That's right.
but that would be
Okay.
within the code, yeah.
okay. Well,
Under those circumstances, it's not necessary to make a zoning change.
I can
Doesn't
just
sound-
stay R1A if those are the, I mean, I guess you can say setbacks, I don't need it.
Right.
It's gonna be kind of,
Mr. Leandro, unless the issue is the depth. Well, I'm sorry, the width.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, by definition, it's the width, but by your definition, it's the depth.
it's exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
I think that's part of what's making it so complicated, right?
Correct.
So that's up to your best practices, however you deem that to be buildable and what you'd like to request.
Yeah. Well, and under those standards, then, I mean, if I'm understanding, then I could potentially get up to 7.5 feet from that southbound property line as far as the building, right? Since that's that's the side setback. So,
Yes, the
yeah, so,
southwest,
yeah. But, yeah, well, in that case, I mean, I'd stand just to stay in R1A if that's the case. That's fine. So,
Well, we thank you for your work with the neighbors and your ability to modify your plans from what was previously shown, but don't stick around, don't go away. Any other questions for Mr. Leandro? I think we've resolved this maybe. I have a card from Ms. Mitchell. You
thanks so
wanna-
much.
Thank you, Mr. Leandro.
If I understand what's now being proposed, no zoning change, one house. And if you, Ms. Mitchell, if you want to state your name and address for the record and address that
Well,
request.
I'm Batty McDonald Mitchell. My address is 3029 Frankston Highway, a lifelonger resident of the St. Louis community and a member of the St. Louis Community Association. So I really want to thank you for your work toward resolving this issue. I want to thank Mr. Leandro for meeting with us and for the phone calls and all of that. And this will be satisfactory to us. Our issue and concern is making sure that we act in good faith, that we represent our neighborhood, that when you start looking and talking about planning and zoning, we're very familiar with planning and zoning, and our issues and concern for anything that happens out in that area is for consistency of characteristics to build better, to increase our property values, not to diminish our property values. We are concerned about the little small houses that we see that are coming up in our neighborhoods. We are concerned regarding it diminishing our property value, the issues with traffic, the issues of feeling safe in our neighborhoods. We're an older neighborhood, older established neighborhood right after slavery, and the lots out there are normally large, and we're used to being able to sit out in the yard and feel comfortable. And what we're seeing in our neighborhoods with the smaller homes, with the smaller parking size, I went down, we've looked at all of the houses that have been built, and what we're seeing is traffic. We're seeing cars parked on the streets, on Bend, on Madison, over out in the on the Walton Drive area, where we're seeing 10 and 12 cars parked at a time, and there's blockage. And so we're rightly concerned regarding the property value, the traffic, and the diminishing of the property value when you start looking at the density levels that we're talking about in planning and zoning. So it is our expectation for the Planning and Zoning Commission to work with us just like you would any home in South Tyler. You wouldn't want homeowners to be sitting next to someone that's just leasing and the turnaround going in and out of the house. And we know that we have to have a mixture of neighborhood. We are for the city Tyler planning, where you're looking at adding more rooftops, but we want consistency of characteristics in our neighborhood. We want for the homeowners to feel safe in our neighborhood, and we're looking for increase in value versus diminish. So I want to thank all of you. I think that we have quite a few representatives from the St. Louis community here, from the St. Louis Association, and I think it's important that whatever we do in good faith. We don't put people's names out there where we really haven't talked to them about the issues and address the issues. We are a viable community, we are a viable association, and anytime anything comes up that is for that neighborhood that we are proud of, and the histories that we will be present to make sure that our community is maintained, that it is increased in value and not diminished. We're very watchful of every sign that goes up in the neighborhood. And I don't know if any of my friends out here have anything else to say, but I want to thank you for maintaining that zoning. We would be against, in that particular area, the change to anything. I mean, we work with Mr. Leandro, and we really appreciate his willingness to talk to us, but we have to look at precedents being set, not just looking at individuals trying to handle their business and look at business interests. We're looking at maintaining a quality, increasing the quality of that neighborhood. We promised that to our ancestors that left the land before us, that we would take care of that community, and that's one of the last historical black communities, and we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that we protect the community in which we live and the land in which we own. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks for your work on behalf of your neighborhood. I also have a card from Eloise Green. Ms. Green, would you like to come to the microphone, please? State your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Eloise Green. My address is 2405 Frankston Highway. Upon attending the meeting with Mr. Leandro, I was of the understanding that he was, well, this is when he was talking about the number of houses that were going to be built and so forth. And during the conversation with several of us that are here today, he spoke of leasing those houses that were going to be built. And that is a concern of mine, because when you lease property, people tend to move in and out, and they don't take care of property as they would if it belonged to them, as if it was their ownership. So that is one of the main concerns. And I'm happy to hear that he has agreed to do one house rather than the proposed 4 houses or 2 houses, because those lots are rather too small for the houses that are being built that I have seen down the street from the proposed house that he's talking about being built. But my concern is also leasing homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Green? We thank you for your time and presence here. I also have a card from Dwight Stoglin. Mr. Stoglin?
Dwight Stockton, 2510 Franchell. Thank y'all, and thank Mr. Landreau for meeting with us. That's all I have to say. Everything's gonna stay the same, from what I understand, right?
That's my understanding as well, although we hadn't done anything yet.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, sir, for your time and presence. The last card I have is from Willie Stoglin. Mr. Stoglin?
Willie Stoglin, and I think Betty spoke well enough for me, because I'm the one on the property that adjoining the property that's involved. And I've seen some other houses, and they weren't up to par. And what I see about them, they have cars in the driveway, in the yard, not in the drive, and on the street. And it's concerning me because my property is next to that property, and I'm concerned about the losing the value of my property. And I thank you for your time.
We thank you, sir, for your time and presence. Those are the only cards I have on this item. Anybody else like to speak for or against? Yes, ma'am, if you'd come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Patricia Record Henry. I live at 311 LeMay Drive, Tyler, Texas, 75704. I own property out there in St. Louis, 2712 Toll, Tyler, Texas, 75701. I am a member of the New Holland Baptist Church, and that address is 3009 Walton Road, Tyler, Texas, 7571. We came back in 2017, and we agreed to this owner, this contractor, building property next door to the church. Well, he built the property. He put 2 houses on one lot. They're very small houses. The people that moved into these houses are low-income families. The problem is they parked at the church. We put up a fence, not a fence, a gate to keep them from property. They got there, they moved up the stake that held the fence, down. Okay, Sunday we found out the pastor study window was broken. Last week, a brother at the church came and he said the children were playing in the church parking lot, and he told them to leave. Those houses that were built, they didn't build a backyard for the children to play. It's too small for the children, so they come over to the church. And this is causing a problem for the church. So I don't think any more property should be used in St. Louis for 2 houses on one lot, small houses. So that's all I have to say.
And we thank you for your time and presence. Those are the only cards I have. Are there other persons here who would like to speak on this item? If not, then I need some, if this item is not, is basically going to be withdrawn, do we need a formal vote to deny the application, or can it just be withdrawn? Counselor? Somebody? Don't look at me.
I think, I mean, if it's being withdrawn, then if the applicant's withdrawn the application, then I don't think there's any further action needed. But if the board or the commission wants to act on the actual request, that R1D is not approved, then that would be, might be a cleaner way.
Every lawyer needs a lawyer, and here comes mine.
Yes. Motion withdrawn. Okay.
What did my lawyer tell you?
It sounds like, yeah, there can be a motion to accept the withdrawal of the application, and that way there is some action on this item on the agenda.
All right. Would a member of the commission like to make such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the withdrawal of the application from the applicant.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to withdraw the application, which means that everything will go back as it was before this process started. The property will still be zoned R1A. Is that everybody's understanding?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If so, any discussion?
Well, just one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Kyle, can you tell Mr. Stoglin and the remainder of the St. Louis community area about people parking in yards and like where they might be able to get some relief from that? I apologize, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, there are restrictions on parking within the front yard. Any vehicle has to be parked in a driveway or, an improved surface. And so if there's any concerns with that in the neighborhood, code enforcement can be called to look into those situations and to investigate. But each home that's constructed is required to have at least 2 parking spaces on the property. So if there's any issues with, perhaps additional cars on that for that home, just to clarify that the code does not allow parking on the grass, and so code enforcement can be called in to help with that situation.
All right.
I'd just like to say, we thank you for that. We call and cars are parked. Across the street from me is tended any one time, so we will follow up keep following up.
Okay.
We haven't had any resolution on Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, remind me, did we actually vote? No, I didn't think we
Finished.
did. All right, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is PD 21-017 West Oaktown Homes, and Mr. Landis is going to excuse himself. Thank you all for your time here.
All right, I'm going to do this item.
Kyle?
This is a request for a PMXD2 Planned Mixed Use District, an amendment to the site plan and to the narrative for this plan development. This is located at the corner of West Irwin and South Vine Street. This was approved to PMXD2 on March 23rd, 2021, so earlier this year. The applicant's proposing to develop a mixed-use building with a parking garage, apartment units, and then some office space and commercial retail. The site plan was approved earlier this year for 95 residential units. And this was the layout that was approved earlier this year. The applicant is now requesting to revise the layout to adjust the building footprint on the site, as well as to move the entrance from South Vine Avenue to West Irwin Street. And on West Irwin Street, it would have a gated or a gate to the parking garage. And staff has reviewed the location of the gate and then the standards that go along with that. And the applicant has incorporated language into the approval or into the plan to mitigate any concerns with traffic on West Irwin Street if somebody's denied access into the parking garage. And so the site plan does relocate the driveways. It does reduce the sidewalk width along West Irwin Street. Previously it was 13 feet. It reduces it down to 9 feet, but that's still above and beyond what the code requires. And so, and they are showing kind of I do have a rendering here. Some areas there along the front of the property or the pedestrian area on the property that creates that mixed use pedestrian friendly environment for downtown. So with that, staff has reviewed the application and recommends approval of the proposed changes and of the notices that were sent out. 0 will return in favor or in opposition to the change. I got a little ahead of myself there. We did receive a letter from a neighbor to the south that was, they weren't concerned, they weren't opposed to the change or the development. They just had some concerns about, how they operate and if this was going to change that or not, or how that would impact their operations. But this development's already been approved earlier this year. This is just a change to the layout. And so again, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Kyle?
What kind of business is that south of them?
I believe it's some supply
Plumbing
supply warehouse
Plumbing
plumbing. Yeah.
Plumbing supply.
I don't know if I have a.
All right, if no further questions, the only card I have is from Mr. Martindale. All right. Let the record show that Rick Martindale, 1101 East Southeast Loop 323, here in Tyler, is present and available for questions. Any questions for Mr. Martindale? If you'd come to the microphone, please, sir. And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Charles Durrett. I'm a property owner at 800 West Irwin, which is in the same block. And my question would be, are there any public records available with the new plans that I can have a look at them?
You're looking at the building plans? that
Right,
kind
the
of-
change in the building plans. Is there any?
I think you could probably talk to Mr. Martindale about that.
Well, this is the proposed change to
Where
the
can I get
site.
copies of these?
Of this, we can make you a copy of that, or
That's
Mr.
what-
Martindale could provide that, or the applicant.
We can provide you what the city has or what Mr. Martindale has.
Right, I'd just like to see what changes, are going to be with the entrance on West Irwin. It definitely is going to affect the traffic on West Irwin, which is already pretty busy.
Yes, we have what the applicant has submitted for review.
How do I
So
go about getting a copy?
you can just make a request and we can provide that to you.
Okay, could I please get a copy?
Okay, yes.
Would that be mailed to me, or how do I receive that?
I think we can take your information and we can either email it to you or mail it to you. Yeah.
Can I get my information now? Or do I get it to?
Can, one of the planners there can.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Does that satisfy your request? Do you have what you need? Okay. Are there other persons here who'd like to speak on this item, for or against? All right, if not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve PD 21-017.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve these changes. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item's approved. John? Let the record show that Mr. Landis is back with us. The next item is Z21-032, 616, 620, and 624 East Oakwood Street. Thrani?
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and good afternoon to everyone present here today. This is a zone change request from M1, which is Light Industrial District, to R2 and PMF. R2 is our two-family residential district, and PMF is a planned multifamily district. This is a property that's located east of the northeast intersection of Poplar Avenue and East Oakwood Street. If you look at the zoning, mostly it's surrounded generally by industrial uses. The property to the east, west, and south is zoned M1 and are developed with the location of a gas station and commercial uses, and also there's an undeveloped property. The property to the north is M2, and they're all general industrial district, and they're also with the industrial uses. With respect to the future land use guide, this request, since it's PMF and R2, this would amend the future land use guide from single-family medium-low density to a multifamily. The applicant is proposing this zone change to bring the property into conformance. If you look at the aerial map from east to west, there's 3 different lots. The first lot has two buildings. One is a duplex and a garage, and it has 3 units. The second property has 4 buildings, and it's each duplexes with 8 units. And the third building has 1 building, which has 4 units in it. This was constructed in 1935, all of them in the industrial zoning district when residential uses were allowed during permit zoning. And that's why they wanted to bring the property into conformance for refinance purposes. But at this time, the applicant has not provided us any site details, what's existing out there. We didn't know the setbacks, we don't know the height, and how many parking spaces are already there. So we are waiting on them to provide more information. Out of the 17 notices that was sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request. But as the staff has reviewed it, since we're waiting on more information from the applicant, staff recommends tabling this item indefinitely until we receive more.
All right. Thank you, Tharani. Any questions for Tharani?
Tharani, have you heard from them at all? Since
The last I heard is they said they don't have any survey to give all of that information, and
Okay.
after that I haven't heard anything.
Okay, so they're gathering information to
Yes.
create, okay, thanks.
All right, I don't have any cards on this item. Are there persons here who would like to speak on this item, for or against? Anybody at all? All right, if not, the staff's recommendation is to table for indefinitely. Would a commissioner like to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table Z21-032 for indefinitely.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, next is items tabled indefinitely. Next is Z21-039, Elizabeth Vanderpool Harvey Clyde, 1326 and 1386 East Grande Boulevard. Tharani?
This is a zone change request from AG, Agricultural District, to C2, General Commercial District. This is a property that's located on East Grande Boulevard. The applicant is requesting the zone change to develop a self-storage facility on the property. If you look at the zoning around it, the property to the north is zoned R1A and AG, and it's Encore easement. The property to the west, east, and the south is all zoned AG. The property to the west is undeveloped. The property to the south, it has a church and a bunch of single-family homes. And the property to the east, there is a residence to the southeast of the property, and there's also commercial uses. There's an auto garage that's on the east side of the property. With regards to the future land use guide, this identifies this property as mixed use, and it is consistent with the future land use guide. As I mentioned, the applicant wanted to develop a self-storage facility. This is on Grande, which is a major arterial. There have been a lot of commercial properties on both sides of Grande, and there have been many zone changes that has happened, which changed the zoning on Grande in the recent years. Of the 10 notices mailed, one was received in favor and 1 in opposition to the request, making the total percentage to 3.44 protest. The opposition was concerned with, the opposition is the one that's the southeast home, that has a home there. And he was concerned about the setbacks and traffic and noise and what would be the operating hours. I had talked to the applicant, I've talked to the applicant and also the person who was opposed. I let him know that it was a straight zoning, so it has to meet the dimensional standards and every regulations that's in the UDC for C2. Also, the traffic engineer has reviewed the request and has no concerns with regards to the access to the property. And also, the noise ordinance has to be maintained being changed to C2. I had let the opposition know, and he still wanted to keep the opposition, so we still have it on there. The staff has reviewed the request, and staff recommends approving the zone change from AG to C2.
Thank you, Tharani. Any questions for Tharani?
Tharani, I have a question about, excuse me, about buffer yards between C2 and AG. Can you refresh my memory on what those are, if any?
With regards to the UDC, there's no buffer yard requirement between C2 and AG, even though it's a residential zoning district. But if that were to be changed at some point. If or it were to be, any residential, then there might have been a buffer yard required, but at this time, there's no requirement.
No buffer yard requirements? Okay.
That, and I'll just add, that's also true of C1 zoning as well. The applicant's asking for C2, but that'd be true for any commercial zoning.
Meaning no buffer yard requirements to AG?
Right.
Okay.
And are they making it two separate lots? Why is one part, segmented from the other?
That's the current parcel map. So there's actually 2 parcels there that's being rezoned.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know if they plan to subdivide that in the future, but that's just the current layout.
Gotcha.
So if the protester in here subsequently rezoned his tract to a residential, or some other residential zoning, at that point, would the subject property then have to have buffer yard requirements?
It was not done.
If what they rezoned to requires it, then yeah, the C2 property would have to provide that.
Even though the C2 property was zoned before the residential?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, and now if it's fully developed before that happens, if the C2 property is developed prior to a zone change, then it would be legal non-conforming until, something changed, and then the buffer yard would have to be provided.
So it appears that's the only relief probably for the person in protest.
Yes.
Thanks.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for city staff? The only card I have on this item is from Mr. Breedlove. Mr. Breedlove, 1019 Stonegate Circle is here for questions. Any questions from Mr. Breedlove? All right, if not, that's the only card I have. Are the persons here who would like to speak on this item for or against? Any at all? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve Z21-039.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded twice. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item's approved. Next is Z21-040 Sandu, I hope I pronounced that correct, Investments LLC. Yeah.
Good afternoon. The applicant's requesting to rezone from C1 to C2 to provide for an office warehouse use. The adjacent properties to the north, south, and west, they're all zoned commercial C1 and C2, and they have currently commercial uses. The properties to the east are zoned residential and also PCD, and there's residential properties along with the hotel. I think it's the Hilton Hotel. Let's see. The future land use guide identifies this property as general commercial, and let's see, this request is consistent with the future land use guide. Currently, there's a fitness facility on this property, and there has been, we sent out 13 notices. Out of the 13 notices, there was 2 opposition. They came, let's see if I can go back. They came from the residential properties. And the main concern was with increase in truck noises and loading dock noises. You can see here, there's a natural buffer. It's the, I believe it's West Creek, Mud Creek Greenbelt. There's a natural greenbelt and buffer yard. And the UDC does call out, there has to be screening from loading docks adjacent to residential, and that's in UDC section 10-388. They must be visually screened from residential, and this is more than adequate screening. And the lots are also large residential. The smallest lot is 0.75 acres to the east. This is the protest map. It's 4%. And staff does recommend approval of this zone change from C1 to C2.
Are there any questions from city staff? All right, not the only card I have on this one is from Mr. Watley. Mark,
I'm here for any questions that are in.
records show that Mark Watley is here for and available for questions, 909 East Southeast Loop 323, Suite 650. Any questions from Mr. Watley? If not, I don't have any other cards. Are there other persons here who would like to speak on this item for or against? Yes, sir. If you'd come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ricky Walls. My address is 502 West Main Street, White House, Texas. I am the current general manager of Wood Creek Athletic Club, said fitness facility on property. It is not our desire to turn into a warehouse or any commercial facility such as that to put those residents at ease. It's not on our list at all. Wood Creek has been a pillar in the fitness industry for several years. We would like to continue to stay that way. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and presence. Any questions for this gentleman?
How would it impact Wood Creek?
Mark, you want to?
Good afternoon. Mark Watley. This is strictly being done as a way to expand possible uses. We're not saying we're going to convert it to an office warehouse at this point. It sets back, as you can see, behind all the retail uses there. A lot of the property's in the floodplain, so we can't redevelop the site. It's just opening up and expanding potential uses in the future for the building with C2, which is already adjoining it to the north and west. So we're just looking for additional options for the ownership, which also owns the health club as well. The application came from the owner of the property who also owns the health club. Just to clarify that.
Any questions for Mark? If not, thank you for your
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all, sir.
clarification. Any other persons here would like to speak on this item? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z21-040.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item's approved. Next is Z21-038, Texan Root Homes. Kayla?
This is a proposed zone change from M1 to R1D. The applicant is requesting the zone change to build a single-family home. The property is currently zoned M1, which allows for industrial use and not residential use. The adjacent properties to the north, east, and south are all zoned M1 and are generally undeveloped. I believe the larger property to the east is developed with a scrapyard, but really on that lot only the further east is developed. I believe the portion of the west closest to the property is still undeveloped within that lot. The adjacent properties to the west are zoned R1B and are developed with single-family homes. The future land use guide identifies this area as single-family, medium, low density. This request would amend the future land use guide to single-family and single-family attached. The applicant's requesting the zone change to build a single-family home, which is consistent with the future land use guide. The only, based on the size of this lot, R1D is the only zoning that, because of the size of this lot, is the only zoning that would be applicable here, and also would not allow for that lot to be subdivided further based on the dimensions of the lot. So this could have one single-family home on it, only in R1D. This property is in the north end, so this is generally consistent with the Tyler First plan of adding more homes to the north end. Of the 17 notices that were mailed out, no notices were returned in favor or in opposition to the request. And based on staff's reviewed this application and has determined that it's generally consistent with approval criteria, and so staff recommends approval of the zone change from M1 to R1D.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? If not, I do have a card from, I think it's Gamez. Yes, sir, you want to come to the microphone? And state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rogelio Gomez. I own the scrapyard on 906 East Locust Street, Tyler, Texas 75702. And it's not completely developed yet because we just bought it, right? But I just didn't really understand what was happening. As long as this is not going to affect my yard and that they know that I'm going to keep developing, I'm going to get machinery, all this kind of stuff into there. It's going to be loud, and I just don't want it to affect me at all in the future or now, because it's just the starting company is going to be way bigger than what it is now. And as long as it doesn't affect me, then it's okay. I just wasn't sure what's happening.
Well, what's happening is the applicant wants to build a home there.
Yeah, as long as it's not affecting me, because I saw that it's changing from industrial to residential, so I saw that as maybe my property would be affected and I wouldn't be able to.
Only in the sense that you're going to have a different use next door.
Yeah, a different neighbor, right? The neighbor's gonna have a home there, that's it.
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, that's my only concern.
Thank you, sir, for your time and presence. Is the applicant here? Hope he knows what he's doing. Any other person who would like to speak on this item? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve item Z21-038.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next is Z21-041, Jorge Amaya, 505 South Palace Avenue. Caleb?
This is a zone change request from RMF and C1 to C2. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for use on that property as a used car lot. The applicant currently uses the property as a used car lot. The property carries 3 zoning designations currently. The north end of the property is zoned RMF, the center part of the property is zoned C2, and then the southern portion of the property is zoned C1. So this would be turning the whole property into one zoning for the use that it's currently being used for. The adjacent properties to the north are zoned M1 and are developed with commercial properties. The properties to the east and to the west are zoned RMF and are developed with single-family homes or are otherwise undeveloped. And the properties to the south are zoned C1 and are developed with, the one directly adjacent to the south is developed with a single-family home. The future land use guide identifies this property as single-family, medium-low density. This request would amend the future land use guide to general commercial. And that's the current property. As I mentioned, the applicant is currently using the property as a used car lot, which is a permitted use in C2 and is permitted in a portion of their lot as is. The applicant had submitted they're intending to expand their parking lot and I believe maybe renovate their current building. Because they're extending the parking lot into that RMF zoning, that's not an approved use within RMF. So this would allow them to improve their parking surface and use the entire lot as a used car lot.
All right, Caleb, thanks. Any questions for city staff? I don't have any cards on this item. Is the applicant present? Is there any person here who'd like to speak on this item? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Z21-041.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That brings us down to plats. Kyle, what's the story on the first 4 plats? Or do we need to do these individually or?
The first 3 plats, they all meet the, is that right? They all meet the criteria for approval. They're on the agenda because they are re-subdividing residential lots, and so they just need a public hearing. And so we're going through them right now, but all these plats are re-subdividing residential lots into, and they all meet the criteria for approval, so they can be approved. And then item number 4 currently does not meet the review or approval criteria and will need to be denied.
Okay. Counselor, can I do all these first 3 together since they're, okay. The plats F21-0-114.
Nope.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go one at a time.
Okay.
One at a time.
Thank you. The first one, we're going to do these separately. F21-114, the Woodlands, Buena Vista Edition. Any comments on that one, Tharani?
All the staff comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval of this plat.
Okay, the persons here would like to speak on this item for or against? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve F21-114.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. Next is F21-102, Wimberley Douglas and Phillips Edition, 14th Amendment. Tharani?
Staff recommends approval of this plat.
Any person here would like to speak on this plat? If not, is there any discussion? Anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve F21-102.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. God bless you.
Gesundheit. Next is F21-140, MF Turner Edition. Tharani?
All the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
Anybody here would like to speak on this plat? If not, is there a commissioner who'd like to make a motion?
Sure, make a motion we approve item F21-140.
Motion's been made and
Second.
seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item's approved. Next is F21-139, Lake Park Heights. Tharani, this, your staff recommendation is to deny?
Yes.
Because?
There is a zoning violation that's created on the property by replatting into 3 lots. There's an accessory structure on one property, which you have to have a primary structure on the property to have an accessory structure. So right now it's a zoning violation. So at this time, staff recommends denial of this plat.
All right, thank you. Anybody here would like to speak on this plat? If not, is there a motion to deny?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we deny F21-139.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to deny this plat. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Plat's denied. That brings us to consent plats Group A. Are all of these still consent items, Kyle?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, the consent plats Group A, P21-031, F21-151, F21-135, F21-138, F21-141, F21-144. The staff recommendation is to approve all of those plats. Are there persons here who'd like to speak on? Okay. Sir, if you'd like to come to the microphone. And tell us which one of these you're going to speak on.
Number 135.
135.
The Plantation South Edition, First Amendment.
Okay.
I live immediately north of that property,
Okay.
and we've seen a lot of building in our area. A lot of infrastructure has really taken a beating because of it.
We don't necessarily object, but we'd like to know what the property owner has in mind. Real simple. We've had no discussion, nothing. And we had surveyors on our property today as we left to come to this meeting. So we simply want to know what's going on.
Okay, my understanding, Kyle, correct me if I'm mistaken, they're lot lines that they're adjusting.
That's right.
What does that mean?
This is the proposed layout. So currently it's 2 lots, and they are moving the lot line. This was one, I think initially they were going to re-subdivide 1 lot into 2 lots, and now they're just moving lot lines. So I think that's why the neighbor was notified of that. But at this point, they're just moving the lot line. I think, have you showed them which one? Yeah. So they're making the southern lot larger and making that lot there on the northeast, the lot 1A.
Is this to be divided? Okay, so help me understand what they, so there's a boundary around those 4 acres.
Yes, that's correct.
Any issue with
Are
that?
they developing it? Gonna develop?
Yeah.
We've got
Okay, well,
72
we're neighbors.
houses
We'll
going
talk
in
to them.
next door to us.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time and presence. Any discussion on any of these other plats? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve consent plats Group A?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent plats Group A.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to approve consent plats Group A. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Kyle, on consent plats Group B, are these?
Yes.
These are denials?
Consent plat groups B, which are, can you go back to F21, 121, F21, 131, F21, 136, F21, 137, F21, 142, F21, 143. Next slide. F19, 084, F19, or F21, 127, P21, 030. Do not meet the approval criteria, and therefore staff recommends denial of these plats. Once they do address these comments, they can come back and be on the agenda for approval.
Okay. Any questions for city staff? Are there persons here who'd like to address any of these plats? The staff recommendation is to deny all of those, all 9 of those.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny all of consent plats Group B.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to deny all of consent plats Group B. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those are denied. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all of our business today. For the TJC students, I've got some plats to sign. You might just want to look at those to see what they're like. Might be interesting to you, and we'll do that. I'll do that as soon as we adjourn the meeting. Any further business? Commission's adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
All right, fam. It was a joy.